a simple trick on how to find trigonometry ratios for special angles: 0 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, and 90 degrees. Okay, follow me as I take you through the steps. First of all, we're going to draw 5 bars. So have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then, starting from the left, we're going to label the angles: 0 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, and 90 degrees. Okay, so let us start with sine of these angles that are here. So this is the simple trick that we're going to be using. Now let's say for sine theta, we're going to write square root divided by 2. So we're going to count the numbers of bars from the left before we get to any particular angle we want to look for the trigonometry ratio, the sine of that angle. So let's start with 0. So for sine 0 degree, we're going to start from the left and count the numbers of bars before we get to 0. So if you count the number of bars, you find out that there are 0 bars before we get to 0 when we count from the left. So therefore, inside the square root, we are going to include 0. So that's going to give us the square root of 0 divided by 2. That's going to be the square root of 0 is 0 divided by 2. That's equal to what? 0. So let's go to the next angle, 30 degrees. For sine 30 degrees, we count the numbers of bars from the left before we get to 30. So we have just 1 bar. So we're going to include that 1 inside the square root. So that's going to be equal to square root of 1 divided by 2. And the square root of 1 is 1. Which is, so sine 30 degrees is equal to 1 over 2. Now let's go to 45 degrees. Sine 45 degrees. So we count the number of bars from the left. So we have 1 to 2 bars. So we're going to put 2 inside the square root. So we're going to have root 2 divided by 2. So for 60 degrees, we'll count the numbers of bars from the left: 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 bars before we get to 60 degrees. So we're going to include that bar 3 inside the square root. So that's going to be equal to the square root of 3 divided by 2. So that gives you the trigonometric ratio of 60 degrees. That's sine ratio of 60 degrees. Now let's go to 90 degrees. So count the number of bars. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 bars before we get to 90 degrees. So we're going to put that inside the square root. So that's going to give us square root of 4 divided by 2. And the square root of 4 is 2. So we have 2 divided by 2, which is equal to 1. So that's all for the sine ratios of these given special angles. Now let us quickly move to sine ratios of these given angles. So we start with the formula for cosine ratio. So cos theta is going to be equal to square root divided by 2. So we're having the same formula for both of them, but this time around, for each of the angles, we are going to count from the right hand side. So we're starting our counting from this side. So let's take cos 0 degrees. So for cos 0 degrees, when we start counting from the right, we have how many bars? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 bars before we get to 0. So that's going to be equal to square root of 4 divided by 2. And square root of 4 is 2. So have 2 divided by 2, which is equal to 1. Then let's go to 30 degrees. For 30 degrees, we count the numbers of the bars from the right. So we have 1, 2, 3 bars. So include that in the square root here. So that's going to be equal to root 3 divided by 2. So that's the cosine ratio for 30 degrees. Now let's go to 45 degrees. For 45 degrees, the numbers of bars from the right are 1, 2. So cos 45 degrees is going to be equal to root 2 divided by 2, which is same for sine 45 degrees. Okay, so let's go to 60. For 60 degrees, that will be equal to have just 1 bar before we get to 60. So that's going to be equal to root 1 all over 2. And we'll take the square root of 1, that is 1. This is what is 1 all over 2. So for 90 degrees, cos 90 degrees, count the number of bars from the right before 90. So there are no bars. So that gives us 0. So that's going to be square root of 0 divided by 2, which is equal to 0 divided by 2, and that gives us 0. So this next, let us look at that of the tangent. So this is the formula that we're going to use for the tangent. We have square root at the top and also square root at the denominator. So for this, we are going to be counting from the left and the right. So for the square root at the top, we count the bars from the left before we get to the angles, and for the square root below, we count the bars from the right before we get to the angles. So let's quickly look at tan 0 degrees. For tan 0 degrees, we have 0 bars before we get to 0 from the left, and have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 bars before we get to 0 from the right. So we're going to have the square root of 0 divided by the square root of 4, and that's going to be 0 divided by 2, which is equal to 0. So let us look at 30 degrees then tan 30 degrees. For tan 30 degrees, we have just bar to the left and 3 bars to the right. So we're going to have root 1 over root 3. So that's equal to 1 over root 3. So for tan 45 degrees, we have 2 bars to the left and 2 bars to the right. So that's going to be equal to root 2 divided by root 2, which is equal to 1. And let's go to tan 60 degrees. For tan 60 degrees, we have 3 bars to the left and 1 to the right. So we have root 3 over 1. And that's going to give us root 3 divided by 1, which is root 3. And finally, for tan 90 degrees, we have 4 bars to the left and we have 0 bar to the right. So that's going to give us root 4 divided by root 0. And that is equal to root 2 over 0. So when you divide any number by 0, that number becomes undefined. So in all,